All right, welcome back everyone to Strange Planet Podcast. And for this week, we have the election coming literally this Tuesday, just days away at this point. So we figure we're going to be touching a little base on that for right now, considering it could be America the season finale, but let's hope not. I like to try to stay positive about these things. And actually listed over here with me, I have a series of questions I'm going to run at you guys too, just to, see what your opinions are on some things. And of course, everybody listening as well, feel free to leave some answers in the comments on what you think of these questions as well. But I guess before we get to that, what do you guys have to say about this upcoming election coming up, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I feel pretty nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I remember 2016 all too well. And the feeling of being shocked and just in dismay about the choice that the country made to go with Trump. Um, Now that we've seen what a Trump presidency looks like and we rejected him at the ballot last time in 2020. Yeah, it boggles the mind that the election is this close,
Right, right.
even remotely close, given the president's performance, both as the former president, excuse me, given former President Trump's performance both as president and during this campaign. He's become increasingly erratic and increasingly just going off topic and just volatile and hateful,
Yeah,
frankly.
pretty much.
I think about a week ago, he held a campaign event at Madison Square Garden, as you guys know.
Mm-hmm.
And, the highlight of that was the comedian who told jokes about not only Puerto Ricans, but, a whole host of people. But if you actually go and listen to that entire rally, it wasn't just the comedian saying hateful and frankly crazy things. It was his whole lineup of folks there
Mm-hmm.
that were just saying despicable things. And the candidate himself, um, he more recently did an interview with Tucker Carlson, um, lovely guy,
Yeah, right.
um, where he talked about having guns pointed at Liz Cheney. Uh, yeah,
Violent
like
rhetoric again.
like he stirred up his base and his supporters to storm the Capitol on January 6th. Uh, and then now he's sort of aiming his hatefulness at another well, now she's a former elected representative, but I mean, like, do
Don't
people
forget Pelosi's
see
husband
this?
too.
Yeah, I mean, do people see this? Like, how is this acceptable behavior for a major presidential candidate? How are people going to the polls and filling in Donald Trump? I just don't understand it. So, I am hopeful that Kamala will win, but I'm also prepared for the event that the country makes another decision. I'm not going to be surprised because we've been here before,
You're right, right.
but
Deja vu.
I just hope that the country has learned from that mistake and is ready to move forward from that.
I agree. I definitely agree. How about you there, Mark?
Well, I agree with you guys. I'm nervous, not so much for the outcome of the election. It's just that, between the gerrymandering and the, Electoral College and all these, new laws that they're trying to pass in these swing states to eliminate voters and so on and so forth. It's almost like the Republicans don't want to play unless it's dirty. So that in mind, I remember the last election where someone didn't want to take the results of the election. I mean, he's probably going to do the same thing this time. I actually guarantee he's going to do the same thing this time.
Pretty
Because
much.
he's already setting the boundary for it. But I want a fair and proper election. Yeah, he wants the election to be for him. That's his fair and proper. So, no matter what the outcome is, if it's not him at the end of it, it's rigged. So be prepared for that, folks.
Oh yeah.
Now, I understand why it's still kind of like up in the air. Number one, people have short memories. Between their day to day lives and everything, they don't remember like something he said on TV, and most of them like his kind of bravado, you know the way he goes about things because it's different from the norm, and the norm has been a failure to us as a people for the last 50 plus odd years. So what do we do? I mean, hopefully we vote for somebody who's going to keep democracy going, despite the fact that it's still status quo. It's not oh, let's elect the next future Hitler, which happens to be was happened to be named that way by his own VP before he became VP. So stick that feather in your cap if you like. But I mean, it comes down to the will of the people, and the people are just sick of it all. They're sick of politics, sick of the left and the right fighting us against each other. And we need a candidate to come out to unite the people as a whole. Not someone from the Republican Party or the Democratic Party or any party in general, just an American citizen who can come forward and be like, I want to unite the country as a whole. I have ideas about
Oh,
infrastructure, about healthcare, about bringing taxes down for the everyday citizen, about running some kind of just to make things better. The person we need to lead us. But unfortunately, we're human beings, and as human beings, we tend to be greedy and selfish, and just
comes along with capitalism too, but
yeah,
you
tie
know.
with that. It's
Well, what you
it,
said there,
it
Kamala does represent a lot of what you said there, especially out of the two candidates.
true, but she's
You know what I
still
mean?
a Democrat. She's still a party affiliate.
But that's all we
So
have
she,
to go on this right
yeah,
now.
but she
Remember
has an
that.
agenda which is for the people and her people too. Trump's agenda is Trump. End of story.
Yeah, himself.
That's it.
Only
So
I can
don't get
fix
into
it.
your heads that he's a better choice than she is. She is far a better choice. But again, it's picking the worst of two evils. It's status quo, or it's the new the new um, what was it, totalitarian America. Let's go for that one.
You know?
But seriously, people are tired of politics. I'm tired of seeing Trump, man. His stupid. I thought he would have went away after this, but no. I knew he'd come
Well,
back.
the good news is I kind of feel like if this does go the way we all hope in a sense, and say Kamala does win this, I think it will be the end of Trump, but it probably won't be the end of Trumpism. You know what I mean? So that's
Yes,
the first step to eradicating it, though. You know what I mean? So
yes.
once that's gone, that's already getting rid of the mascot. You know what I mean? So once he's out the picture, because I think he even said, although he says a lot of things and he's full of shit on everything, but I'm pretty sure he did say this time was going to be his last time. So if he loses, it's over. He's not going to run
I
again. But
I
he'll be like
mean, I
fucking
don't.
85 by the time then, anyway. So
He's going to spend the next. If he loses, he's going to spend the next 2 to 3 years bitching and moaning
oh, of course.
again with the court
I
circuits while he's in court.
I
Oh
hope he
no, you can't take me to court for these other crimes I did. I still have to figure out if I won the election or not.
I hope he's bitching and moaning from a prison cell.
That's where he belongs,
Yeah, that's
realistically.
that's where he should
Yeah.
be now. He shouldn't even
Yeah.
be part of the election because the whole January 6th thing.
That alone, right? And then you could take a picture of all the
You know,
stuff over the years.
Well,
Charlottesville.
not only that, he was convicted of 34 felony counts. Okay.
yeah,
Right.
So you get convicted of 34 felonies. He was supposed to be sentenced back in August, I believe.
Yeah. It was over the summer, late summer.
And the judge in that case decided that they were going to postpone sentencing until after the election because they
Hmm.
want to appear as if politics was influencing the decision.
Unbelievable,
If
right?
you're,
Like the
how does
fuck
that
is
make any
that?
sense? Like,
Yeah.
you were treating him just like any other convict. You would schedule sentencing within a reasonable amount of time after conviction and then sentence him,
Right.
carry out the sentence.
If it was anybody else, like
Like if it was anybody else, they'd have their sentence already. Whatever that is, they'd have their sentence. If
right.
it's, probation, if it's jail time, if it's, like they would know what's going to happen to them.
mm,
Whereas because there's already a conviction that's already there.
There's
And
mm.
three more cases pending too. You know what I
yeah.
mean? This is
So,
just the first one we're doing with the 34 counts. Like
yeah.
it's
You know,
unbelievable. Like
So for I get the concern about like, oh well, if I sentence this person, it could, influence the election. No, it won't. I mean, obviously he'll have some trouble running around campaigning from prison cell, but
right.
I don't think it would deter his supporters from supporting him at all. If
Probably
anything,
not,
it
which
will
is scary.
embolden them.
well, all
Yeah.
right. I have a question. Do you think that our founding fathers are smarter than the average man today?
Hmm.
The reason why I say that is because I say yes, because
I'm
they
leaning
were
towards yes.
they were smart enough to put into plain English that those who participated in a treasonous act against the government would not be considered to be part of an election. Now that was plain English, but no, everyone wants to pick it apart, analyze it. No, they really didn't mean that. They were talking more like a sense of, he thought he was in the right. So no, you don't get to claim insanity in this, and then pretend it's like, oh yeah, well he thought he was doing the right thing. No, no. He
Right,
should
right.
not even be on the ballot.
I agree with you on that because
Well,
that makes the most sense. You know, why would you have a convicted felon running for president? And even worse, why would the typical American think a convicted felon cares about you?
Well, it's
Right?
not even that he's a convicted felon; he's treasonous.
Yeah, but he is a
He
convicted
he tried
felon
a
too.
coup on the
well,
government. I
well,
mean, that's
it's not for treason because treason has a specific definition. Uh,
death.
treason is like going betraying your country, with respect to another country that we are at war with, and technically
Right.
we're
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 not
not
not.
at
at war
war.
with anybody.
So what he did do was he gave aid and comfort, or aided and abetted an insurrection
Hmm.
against the government
Hmm.
on January 6th.
Yeah, but
And
that should have disqualified him, shouldn't have?
well, according to the Constitution,
In plain
that
English.
that should have been the case. In practice, however,
Yeah, they want to interpret it. That's the
um,
problem.
you know, they didn't, and it's very difficult to enforce.
Because
And this,
nobody's got the balls to do it. He's got
so
his six squirming ones sitting in the Supreme Court, so you can't get it past them. And I mean, that's isn't that aren't they the ones that told him like, yeah, that's not how you interpret it. You interpret it as something different. It's
well,
just
so they did it on a sort of like a technicality.
exactly
So
freaking
so
technicality.
what they did was, I think they said that he has to be placed on primary ballots, because technically primary elections aren't like state official elections. Like, they are regulated by the state, but really the primary elections are, you know, private organizations, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, um, choosing their own candidates. And so it's not like a state official procedure. And so they said that that didn't apply to primary elections. Now, they left open the question of whether it would apply to the general election, but I think, the states just sort of said, okay, whatever, we're just gonna have them on the ballot if for whatever.
Mm.
Yeah. All right. Let's not do whatever and not cover first base. Okay. We should have covered first base here. But no.
Oh, you're right, but I guess they gave up.
They gave
That's
up.
what it sounds like, which doesn't make sense realistically either.
It
To
doesn't.
allow that. Yeah,
It almost feels like they're well, we can't, we don't want to fight this because it's going to take forever to win. If we do win, if we don't win, all that money and time have been wasted. And I get that much end of it, but it's just, you know, I miss the days where American, politicians had the balls to be American politicians and not puppets of other people, whether it's, big pharma, big companies, other countries.
billionaires or whatever. Yeah, I see what
Exactly.
you're saying there. Yeah.
I miss the days where people had standards for their candidates.
Mm. I hear you
Now,
there too.
now
Yep.
Yeah.
the Democratic Party still has standards.
It's
If
true.
you remember back in the 2004 election, you had Howard Dean,
Yeah.
you know, doing his famous scream. Now, now, and that tanked him in terms of voting in the primaries. Like
Right.
after that, he was no longer a viable candidate for the Democratic Party. Fast forward 20 years now in 2024, and Donald Trump was basically filleting a microphone at his rally in Wisconsin.
Right. I don't know what the hell that was. That was some
He
kind
he
of
was
mental
literally
episode
he
there.
was literally like stroking it, like
Yeah. 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 Gotta keep
and
going.
and
Yeah, like
then
this is
and
real talk
then
here. Like,
and then basically giving it a blowjob.
yeah.
There's no other. I don't know
How else to describe it,
like
right? Because I
how
saw
that
the video
is.
too.
I don't know how that is appropriate for a presidential candidate and why you would go vote for someone like that
I
to
mean,
represent
this is
our
the same guy.
country.
It's just like, I'm
Yeah, I know, making
disabled.
fun of disabled people. Like,
Right.
yeah, like what the fuck? That's when I realized that it seems like morality
So
doesn't
so
matter
yeah.
anymore.
So like when I my response to anyone that argues in support of Trump will just be to show them that video. I don't,
Yeah, at
and
this
if they
point,
don't have, and if they still want to vote for Trump after that, I don't have anything more to say to them because if you can see that and see that as the leader of our country, then there's nothing I can do or say to convince
right?
you otherwise. There really isn't. At
Yeah,
that
they're
point,
for
you're
real.
so fucking gone that
Like,
I'm
how is that a
just
good
not
idea?
even like no. He like the fact that he's a serious candidate for president in your head and you think he can represent our country after that um like
It's
what,
unbelievable.
yeah, like wasn't there, reminds me of that like I think it was the first episode ever of that show Black Mirror where the president had to like he was like being blackmailed and I think to have sex with like some animal, some farm
Pig.
animal. Was it a
Oh, that's
pig?
right. I do
It was a
remember
Right?
that.
pig.
Yeah.
Like I bet if Donald Trump did that on stage, like people wouldn't, his supporters wouldn't give a fuck. They'd vote for
Nope.
him.
They'd say it didn't
They'd
happen.
be like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
you're owning the libs."
Right?
Like,
Yeah, the pigs are libs, man. Let's fuck pig.
It
like,
is. It's just it's ludicrous at this point.
Yeah.
it is literally like that movie Idiocracy.
Hmm.
Like, if you go back and watch that movie and then
Watch the
like
RNC.
that's like a satire and then go watch Trump at his rallies. What's the difference now?
There
There
isn't.
is no difference, and people seem to not give a shit about that. I mean, I so honestly, my like any debate between now and the election that any Republican has with me, I'm simply going to show them that video, and if
Say, do
they
you support that?
and then if they, don't have anything to condemn about that or any concerns about that, then I'm just not going to say anything because it's pointless at this point.
It's completely
You're just
pointless.
like clearly the standards you have for president are gone for this guy, and like there's nothing there's like we mentioned earlier about things changing and standards have absolutely changed. You look at President Obama, who I think is like, I don't know, he was like the model of a president, very well spoken
Articulate and
and
yeah, yep.
and just very controlled in terms of his delivery and in terms of his decision making. um he was very meticulous about detail, and he just represented our country very well. Okay. And to go from that, Trump, um it was just night and day. And I don't think, people say that when Nixon, did Watergate, that sort of changed the country and the image that they had of presidents. Not that presidents didn't have scandals before, or, JFK had affairs, and
Right. Long
there
list there.
definitely were presidential scandals, but Nixon sort of betrayed the public's trust in a way that no other president, at least publicly, has done.
Done before, yeah.
And that sort of changed the relationship and what we expect of presidents. But we still had expectations, okay? Trump just completely destroyed those.
Right, right.
And it's just like, you can talk about Clinton with the Oval Office oral and stuff like that. Like it the presidency has definitely, I guess, been degraded over time. But to go from Obama, who I think, sort of restored that sense of importance of the presidency to be a model for uh, Americans and for seriousness in politics. And then to go from that end of the spectrum to the exact opposite, it really changed the country and how our population views politics. Um, and it wasn't for the better.
Not at all. I agree.
And if this country is going to succeed, it needs to have a serious political environment.
And not a mascot. Yeah.
And if we elect Trump again, it's never that seriousness to politics is never coming back. It's
Right.
just
Yeah, we're only going to drift further away from it. And I'm going to take a little side note and we're going to shift a little bit here real quick. Um, just one of the questions I was going to mention from earlier was, God forbid this, does go the other way and say, God forbid Trump actually wins. I don't think people are really fully aware of what the Trump tariffs are actually going to do. Now, the way he keeps phrasing and wording it, he makes it sound like he's going to do this to other countries. But what I think the average Trump voter doesn't actually realize is that tariff is something that they're going to have to pay. So imported goods are going to rise in price because if he were to successfully do this, am I wrong?
no, that's right. Imported goods, and that's a lot of goods. When you go to Walmart, or, almost any other store, Amazon, a
Right?
lot of things are imported from other countries. And China does export a lot of goods. So, yeah, like companies aren't in the business of losing money. And if there's a blanket tariff on imported goods, then companies are going to raise the prices accordingly. They're not going to pay for it. Just like, if there's a rise in minimum wage, they're not going to pay for it. They're going to pass that on to the consumer to the extent that the market allows. Or even if it doesn't allow, they don't care. They have, share prices to increase for the next quarter. So they're going to raise the prices as much as possible to cover that cost.
So the American people are going to be the ones paying that tariff in the end.
Oh, absolutely. One way
That's
or the
exactly
other,
what I
they're
thought.
going to be the companies aren't going to be paying it. The countries that Trump rails against aren't going to be paying it. It's going to be the consumers who pay it.
Unbelievable.
That's just the tip of the iceberg. If he's elected president, you're going to see shit across the board. You're going to see a lot more violent crimes, especially racist crimes, because that's part of his agenda. You're going to see the fucking stock market like crash to fucking almost nothing after he does the tariffs thing. That's going to fucking ruin a lot of that. You're going to see, I don't know how far he's going to go with trying to kill his opponents, but he's definitely going to go after people. Whether
that was my next question, actually, that I was
or
going to
whether he
bring up.
sends his drones, not drones, his thugs,
His cronies.
there you go, that's the word I was looking for. His cronies, out to Nancy Pelosi's house, or shifty shift, or whatever the situation is. You're going to see a lot happen where it's gonna happen first. It's not like he's going to say it and they're going to stop in the middle of it. No, there's going to be so much crap hitting the fan that some stuff's just going to start happening, and everyone's going to have to scramble to try to get it back, into order. And who knows if we'll ever recover from that? Even if he loses, we still have to wash the stink of Trump off of us. The Trumpisms and everything. Get Marjorie Taylor Greene and all the other stupid MAGA people out of the freaking Congress. We have a lot of work ahead of us. Even if we win, we still have a lot of work ahead of us.
In addition to what he said, which is going to tie the next question to it, is like he's been saying that, like, God forbid, like I said before, God forbid he wins. Remember, he was talking about jailing his political opponents and doing harm and all this other crap. What can be done to combat that if, God forbid, he becomes president and that happens? It's hard to say, right?
He's God King at that point.
Because we might be like under dictatorship at that point.
We will be. So without the label, it'll be a dictatorship.
But that would be like, that would cause a lot of issues, because you can't just jail someone because they have different ideologies than you do or different policies.
He's the president with unlimited power.
Yeah, like this really comes down to what kind of America do you want to live in? Do you want to keep and save democracy the way it's been for, I don't know, God knows how long?
All right.
Or do you want to shift over to what Russia and North Korea are doing?
Let's really get into this. You know what? Let's get into this.
Unreal.
Let's get into this real quick. So, you want to know what would really happen? What could we really do?
So, what's the combat? Yeah, like what can be done to at least suppress this?
I believe that the only way to really combat that would have to go through, the House and the Senate. But you and me and every other average person, what could we probably do about it? Nothing. Because if there's any kind of thought of an uprising or a rebellion, you will see tanks and military walking through the streets. They'll get encampments. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be really ugly. That's the thing, though. That's if everybody goes along with it. Meaning, like, the military guys are like, sure, you're the president. Yes, sir.
Well,
FBI, CIA, all that stuff.
Trump has already primed his supporters to support violence against Democrats and liberals. He has already said demonizing things about large constituencies of Democrats. He's used, he like I said, Liz Cheney, she's not even a Democrat, she's a Republican, but he
He's not his
sort
kind
of
of Republican.
normalize the notion of, oh, let's like all point guns at her, and like it's just very he's stoked his base to a point where they're expecting this sort of violence. Now, if you talk to some Trump supporters, they always had brought up the like even a few years ago, they brought up this notion of civil war, and the Democrats are trying to start a civil war. Or there's going to be a civil war as a result of this. Now, I don't know any Democrats, or maybe there are some, but I certainly haven't heard that type of concern from Democrats about civil wars and taking up arms, because we don't own fucking guns. So like I just don't understand. So they have this like paranoid notion within themselves that um we're destined for war. And I just so there's this whole base of support, and he talks at his rallies. Yeah, I want to, he this is going back to his microphone issues, because he was having issues with his mic. He's like, I want to go back there and knock them out or something like that.
I
And
remember
it's just very like violent, and people are like cheering, and like it's I mean it literally is like Hitler-esque, but just with a stupid person at the fucking helm. Uh,
that.
like instead of just an angry person, it's a stupid angry person.
Don't sell Hitler short. I mean, he wasn't exactly the most brilliant person either, because if you remember, he, had the same folly as Napoleon. He decided to go to Russia without packing some winter clothes. Not exactly a brainiac moment. But, I mean, it's usually the dumb ones that have a lot of charm.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Hitler was, maybe he made a dumb, strategic decision in terms of, and it wasn't just that it was winter, it was like opening it up another front of the war that wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
He was allies with the Soviet Union, and then for whatever reason, he decided to break up that alliance and attack them, which was fucking stupid.
Yep.
Okay.
Especially when you're doing it in an area
Yep.
that's cold and your soldiers don't have any
Well,
protection against the cold.
it's not just it's cold. There's a shit ton of people in Russia.
Yeah, I know.
A huge army. Like, why would you start a war with someone who is your ally when you're already fighting, half of Europe and America, and
Yeah,
like,
right.
why
And
would
with that, I show you Trump's future, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Let's pray to
no,
Christ that don't happen.
no, well, the thing about Trump is that we won't have a war with Russia, because he'll just give Putin whatever he wants. If
That's
he wants
true.
Well,
Ukraine,
that's
give him
until he
Ukraine.
deems that Putin is, has too much power and he needs more. This is not going to stop him from trying to get more power.
Of course not.
It's definitely going to be the stepping stone to him becoming, the guard oligarch of the world. I mean, what's to stop him from, from going to war with everybody?
Yeah, see, the difference between Biden and Trump as it stands right now is we are aiding Ukraine to defend themselves. If Trump was president, God forbid he had a second term, we would probably be helping Russia. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, man. Like
Well, he thinks Putin is his friend, and that um, Kim Jong Un is his friend. Um, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have a friendship, but it's advantageous to the other party, not to
mm,
Americans.
No,
Um,
I think it's more like you're good. You're kind to the special needs kid because his sister's kind of hot. You know what I'm saying?
Jesus.
It's
I
that's kind of the situation with them. It's just like,
see what you
yeah,
mean.
we want America to be on our side. So, hey, Trump, how you doing? You're a good guy.
He's a
No, well,
useful idiot.
in that respect, Putin is smarter than Trump because Putin, wants to take Ukraine over,
Mm,
and it would be very advantageous to him to not have America interfere in that effort.
yep.
Right.
And so instead of opening a multi-front war that involves the United States and NATO, he can basically get America to stand down and let him do whatever he wants. And um, probably NATO at that point will not have, the leadership and direction to go forward into to stopping him. Now, there are other countries in NATO who are intimately more concerned with Putin's advances in uh, Eastern Europe because they're also next on the list.
I was going to
Yeah.
say
There
Poland
are a
could be
lot
next.
of former Soviet Union countries that Putin probably has an interest in. And he if he sees the America stand down on Ukraine, which is not currently a NATO country, then he'll test NATO further by advancing into NATO countries. And if Trump thinks that Putin's his friend and he hates NATO, so
Yeah.
he might just let him do it. I mean, he hasn't shown any backbone with regard to Russia.
No,
At
not at
He
all.
all.
Yeah.
he just folds and praises Putin. He doesn't stand up to him at all.
And that's
Oh,
really scary if you think
really
about
quick
that.
before we end this, I have one more question.
Me too.
You've been seeing the information about North Korea and helping Trump get into Ukraine, sending over troops that are,
You mean Putin, but same thing.
Pretty
oh,
much.
well,
Yeah.
to Ukraine to fight the war. I mean,
I know, no,
for Putin.
you said
Yeah,
Trump.
sorry,
But
I'm sorry. I'm getting
it's
confused
hard to
between
see
the
a
two
difference.
oligarchs.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like you've heard about the North Koreans, firing off weapons and looking to help Putin
Always.
and everything. But could this be the straw that breaks the back for the world for World War III?
Um, I don't know because North Korea has a long, long history of firing off rockets and testing nuclear weapons now. They have made threats to the United States over and over and over and over again. Are they stupid enough to do it? Probably not. They might, but with Trump in office, they have no reason to. Um, because Trump is going to let Kim Jong Un, his friend, do whatever he wants. Um, and whether that is so, North Korea has its own internal problems. It's a very poor country, um, and it's isolated from the world. Um, no one really talks to North Korea. Um, Trump talks to North Korea, which sort of gave them some form of legitimacy during the Trump presidency, which doesn't make sense. Um, but he, I, I, I think that if North Korea has Trump as president, they they'll still fire off threats and test nuclear missiles or whatever. But I I think that Trump will just allow Kim Jong Un to do whatever he wants, and so there's really no conflict there. Now, I know the Republicans would say to this, "Oh, so see, isn't Trump better for America than and the world than a Democrat?" or another reasonable politician from the Republican Party that knows North Korea is a threat and should not have nuclear weapons.
let,
Um,
let dictators do whatever they want, you know?
like, yeah, I mean, letting dictators do whatever they want is not a wise policy. We've learned from the past that letting a dictator amass power, um, and they're not like I said, North Korea is a very poor country. They don't have the resources internally to survive other than prop up their regime with wealth. Now, if they are able to, um, you know, expand and you know, able to go into other countries to get resources forcefully using maybe Russian military. So the reason that Kim Jong Un is helping out Russia is probably not because Kim Jong Un likes Putin. It's probably to get something, namely the resources, a share of the resources that Putin wants from countries like Ukraine. Okay. So if he helps out by sending troops to fight in Ukraine and then they take over Ukraine, guess who's going to get a share of the spoils of war?
Hmm,
Kim Jong Un.
right.
And so that necessity to obtain resources from outside of their borders is going to make them an enduring threat. And if the United States allows this to happen, this allows Putin and whoever wants to support Putin's war efforts to take over countries that aren't his. Um, that sounds like World War III in the making to me.
Yeah, could be.
Possible.
That's a scary situation there, and that's why this election is very important because we need to have the candidate in there that knows what they're doing and that is against these things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not enabling them. You know. But moving on to my last and final question, actually here, it really has to do with the Electoral College, which I've always had a problem with.
Hmm.
But here's my problem. I don't believe if I'm doing this correctly here, I'm pretty sure the last time a Republican actually won the popular vote, that is, was Bush back in 2004. So you figure we're going on 2025 right now, and they haven't won one since. Yet there still was the Trump presidency. And that's where my point comes in here, because what I'm saying is Trump didn't win the popular vote, but the Electoral College overrode it, obviously, and therefore he was the president. So this is the reason why I feel like maybe some people out there think their vote don't count because Kamala Harris could win the popular vote by 10, 15 million votes. But if the Electoral College decides to sway the other way, she ain't going to be president and we're screwed. You know what I mean? So I know there's people like Pete Buttigieg, and there's plenty others that are doing what they can to actually see if it's possible to have the Electoral College, abolished or removed. What do you guys think about this theory? And does it make sense? Should we do it? Should America, like the popular vote, choose who the president is every election?
The short answer is probably not because it is written into the Constitution. Um, and that needs to be changed by constitutional amendment, which requires supermajority in both the House and Senate, and also a supermajority in terms of the state legislatures need to approve a constitutional amendment as well. So you would have to get all the red states who want to vote for Republican candidates to agree to basically give up an advantage that they have
Right,
with
which is not
the
going to
local.
happen.
Right. So originally, the Electoral College was put in place so that southern states, which had less of a population, could have more of a say in our government. They were afraid that northern states would have an overwhelming influence on government, and part of the compromise of forming a union together was that they have, a fair shot at political power.
Hmm.
Um, and so what they came up with was that, okay, well, even though some of these southern states have a tiny, tiny population, they will get at least some representation in terms of both the Electoral College, which is the body that actually elects the president, and also in Congress. So, um, they're guaranteed, seats in Congress, even though their population might not warrant it. And so it's going to be very difficult to change, especially those southern states' minds about the Electoral College, because it advantages them in terms of making their representation larger than it actually
Than it
is.
actually is. Right, right.
And so why would they give that up? They're not going to
They're
do
not
it.
gonna. Yeah.
And that system is sort of locked in by our constitution.
The irony of the whole thing there, not to cut you off, but the irony of the whole thing there is that it's written in the Constitution, and that's the reason why. But the Republican candidate running for president, Donald Trump, doesn't even respect the Constitution. So, you know what I mean? So, like this, once again, this, like, I'm like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, like it's there, it's actually helping his cause in a sense, and for this reason here, and he
Well,
don't even respect it.
I'm sure he likes that component of the Constitution, even if
Yeah,
even if he's probably not completely aware of it.
yeah. Well, it's funny you were bringing it up because I remember in the 2016 election, one of the things he was saying when he was campaigning was that he wanted to remove the Electoral College, but then when he found out it was his ticket to win the election, he was real quiet about it ever since. You know?
I don't remember him saying anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, you
Yeah.
never know what the fuck he's saying when he talks
Uh,
half the time because he's full of shit. But I do remember him a couple of times, very like early 2016, he was saying things that he didn't always agree with it, or we might be able to do without it. But these could have just been sayings to, get people and reel them in. You know what I mean? Say something they like and gotcha, bitch. Like, you know what I mean?
right.
That's yeah, all it could have been.
Like his proposal to eliminate taxes on tipped wages,
Right,
which Kamala actually replicated, because it is a very attractive campaign promise to make. Hey, like there's a lot of wage workers who earn tips. So wouldn't you like to not pay taxes on it? Vote for me and I'll do that for you.
all right,
Uh, so Trump has sort of like one-upped that since, and he's like, well, maybe we just won't have taxes in general. Um, okay, do you realize what that would do to our debt and deficit?
right,
Won't have money for things, for investing in our country. Like no taxes sounds great, and it might attract people to vote for it, but he knows this isn't feasible. He
right.
knows
It's not
it's not a realistic proposal. But do his supporters? I don't know. Probably not, because they're not really grounded in reality. They're grounded in wishful thinking and discounting facts. So
right.
um, he can say whatever he wants to his supporters and people who are inclined to support him, and they'll just go along with it and ignore any uh, countering negative information about it. So it's an annoying strategy because I mean politicians always promise things during elections, but to promise or to float the idea of having no taxes at all, that is just preposterous.
Yeah,
And
it's not sensible. And well, I mean, look who it's coming from in the same sense, you know?
right,
Like nothing out of his mouth is
but to a Trump supporter who doesn't really believe in facts or wants to make up their own facts
or unless Trump says it, then
and
it's a fact.
and lives in their own reality, that it doesn't matter what he tells them if they believe him.
Right, right.
I
And the
mean,
scarier part too about
how do you combat that?
you can. That's the sad part because it's just you're fighting with something that just is insensible. Like it just
What do you say as a candidate to that? Like, yes, we have to have taxes, which people of course don't like, but
right,
I mean, to run a modern country, you need taxes if you want to have, um, a viable system that works for everyone and not just the super wealthy who can afford things. Like, if you there are so many, um, like if you want to have a military, for instance, have to have taxes. If we don't, like I know a lot of, um, even some Republicans who are like anti-war, which exists now. They're abolishing the military or getting rid of the military or bringing not having us involved in the world makes the world more dangerous because we create a vacuum that bad actors like Putin will fill.
right, right,
China will fill. Um, and so, it's like, do you want to have healthcare? Do you want to have a postal service? Do you want, well, I mean, that's sort of semi-private, but do you want to have,
Roads.
uh, well, yeah, that federal tax dollars do pay for a lot of roads, and construction, but yeah, do you want to have disaster relief? Do you want to have, and their response to that, well, the states can take care of it themselves, but they don't.
yeah. It's like, can they? Will
Um,
they?
they don't,
Yeah,
and
New York's subsiding most of them anyway, so fuck you.
yeah, no, like so some states face more natural disaster issues than others. It's just the fact of the matter is that their location leaves them prone to more frequent natural disasters. Like New York rarely has hurricanes
Right.
compared to a place like Florida.
Look,
Uh,
I would state.
right, like, and some states have fires, like
California.
California,
California. Yeah.
right, and earthquakes, like, whereas other states don't. Some states have tornadoes, whereas other states don't. Um, some states have flooding, whereas other states don't. Um, so the question is that something that that state should bear alone, or are we a union? Are we one country that says, okay,
Hmm.
you have these sort of natural challenges that other states don't have, so we're going to chip in and help you with those because we are one country. Um, and I get really annoyed when like Hurricane Sandy was about maybe a little over a decade ago. When that happened, um, there were some Republicans in Congress who were like, "No, don't fund, don't give money to the state of New Jersey. Don't help the people who were devastated by that." But then, a couple of years later, when their state is hit by a tornado,
Yeah. Right. Then they're shitting in
tornadoes
bed.
or hurricanes, they're the first to be like, "Oh, we need federal dollars.
Help.
This money, send us money." I mean, it's just so selfish, and that's like the Republican way of thinking. It's a selfish way of thinking. It's
True.
not thinking like we are one country. Democrats, don't give resistance when, a state that's red, needs disaster relief. We just give them the money and the assistance
Right, right.
that they need, and it's just it's annoying. But back to the point. So the electoral college is like, I think it's it honestly, it was originally crafted to protect slave states in terms of political power. That's the truth of the matter. And it also creates an intractable division between those states and the northern, historically non-slave owning states, or the states that got rid of slavery a lot sooner without being forced to as the result of a civil war.
Civil War, right?
Um, so like, yeah, like New York had slaves, but they got abolished slavery in, I think, like 1807. Um, whereas it took until 1865 for states like, South Carolina and Texas and
Mississippi. And
yeah,
yeah.
it took them longer to be
Yeah.
convinced that nah, you can't have slavery. And so that the I think that the time to abolish the Electoral College was then. Um, and to be admitted back into the Union, um, I think it was time to do away with it then, because that was when uh, there probably was enough support, just because the Union consisted of only non-slave owning states, to be like, okay, let's change this now, so that whoever gets the popular vote becomes the president.
Right.
Now you've created that division that exists until this day. Now, you know, ironically, it was the Democratic Party that represented the slave owning states, and the Republican Party that represented the North and the non slave owning states. But over time in the 20th century, they sort of switched sides. And those former slave states went to the Republican Party, and the former non-slave states went to the Democratic Party. There was a huge political shift that happened over time in the middle of the 20th century, and that's how the parties, became who they are today. And so, yeah, I don't hold out much hope. Like, Pete Buttigieg is smart, but
It's not going to happen though,
I
right?
don't think we can barely pass laws through Congress, no matter which party is in control of the presidency. How the hell are you going to pass a constitutional amendment on such a divisive issue
Mm-hmm.
that determines political power in our country?
Yeah, it's not
I don't think it's feasible.
not at all. Not at all. I hear you there. All right, folks, and that's all we got for this week. And make sure you get out and vote. Election day is coming this Tuesday. Vote on democracy, because it does depend on it. And like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Thanks for watching. Peace.